Hey, it's Friday, January 19th, and this is Treasure Christ Today. Welcome back. My name's John Michael, one of the pastors here at the Bridge Church. It's a joy to be with you all, and we are reading Matthew chapter 26 today. We're going to shift Matthew 27 to Saturday's reading since we have 75 verses to do today, so lock in with us and follow along as we read, starting off in verse 1. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he told his disciples, "You know that the Passover takes place after 2 days, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priest and the elders of the people assembled in the courtyard of the high priest, who was named Caiaphas, and they conspired to arrest Jesus in a treacherous way and kill him. "Not during the festival," they said, "so there won't be rioting among the people." While Jesus was in Bethany, at the house of Simon the leper, a woman approached him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume. She poured it on his head as he was reclining at the table, and when the disciples saw it, they were indignant. "Why this waste?" they asked. "This might have been sold for a great deal and given to the poor." Aware of this, Jesus said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a noble thing for me. You always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me. By pouring this perfume on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Then one of the 12, the man called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priest and said, "What are you willing to give me if I hand him over to you?" So they weighed out 30 pieces of silver for him. And from that time, he started looking for a good opportunity to betray him. On the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" "Go into the city to a certain man," he said, "and tell him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I'm celebrating the Passover at your place with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them and prepared the Passover. When the evening came, he was reclining at the table with the 12. While they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." Deeply distressed, each one began to say to him, "Surely not I, Lord." He replied, "The one who dipped his hand with me in the bowl, he will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for him if he had not been born." Judas, his betrayer, replied, "Surely not I, Rabbi." "You have said it," he told him. As they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take and eat. This is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them and said, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for the many for the forgiveness of sins. But I tell you, I will not drink from this fruit of the vine from now on until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." After singing a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "Tonight all of you will fall away because of me, for it is written, 'I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered.' But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter told him, "Even if everyone falls away because of you, I will never fall away." "Truly I tell you," Jesus said to him, "tonight, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Even if I have to die with you," Peter told him, "I will never deny you." And all the disciples said the same thing. Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he told the disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." Taking along Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. He said to them, "I am deeply grieved to the point of death. Remain here and stay awake with me." Going a little further, he fell face down and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. He asked Peter, "So couldn't you stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray so that you won't enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again, a second time, he went away and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." And he came again and found them sleeping, because they could not keep their eyes open. After leaving them, he went away again and prayed a third time, saying the same thing once more. And then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? See, the time is near. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let's go. See, my betrayer is near." While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, suddenly arrived. A large mob with swords and clubs was with him from the chief priests and elders of the people. His betrayer had given them a sign. "The one I kiss, he's the one. Arrest him." So immediately he went up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and he kissed him. "Friend," Jesus asked him, "why have you come?" Then they came up and took hold of Jesus and arrested him. At that moment, one of those with Jesus reached out his hand and drew his sword. He struck the high priest's servant and cut off his ear. Then Jesus told him, "Put your sword back in its place, because all who take up the sword will perish by the sword. Or do you think that I cannot call on my Father, and he will provide me here now with more than 12 legions of angels? How then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen this way?" At that time, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs as if I were a criminal to capture me? Every day I used to sit teaching in the temple, and you didn't arrest me. But all this has happened so that the writings of the prophets would be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and ran away. Those who had arrested Jesus led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had convened. Peter was following him at a distance, right to the high priest's courtyard. He went in and was sitting with the servants to see the outcomes. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for false testimony against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they could not find any, even though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 of them came forward, stated, "This man said, I can destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. The high priest stood up and said to him, "Don't you have an answer to what these men are testifying against you?" But Jesus kept silent. The high priest said to him, "I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." "You have said it," Jesus told him. "But I tell you, in the future, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his robes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? See, now you've heard the blasphemy." "What is your decision?" they answered him. "He deserves death." Then they spat in his face and beat him. Others slapped him and said, "Prophesy to us, Messiah. Who was it that hit you?" Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl approached him and said, "You were with Jesus the Galilean too." But he denied it in front of everyone. "I don't know what you're talking about." When he had gone out of the gateway, another woman saw him and told those who were with him, "This man was with Jesus the Nazarene." And again he denied it with an oath, "I don't know the man." And after a little while, those standing there approached and said to Peter, "You really are one of them, since even your accent gives you away." Then he started to curse and to swear with an oath, "I don't know the man." And immediately a rooster crowed, and Peter remembered the words of Jesus had spoken, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. This is the word of the Lord. Here in this chapter, we encounter just powerful contrast all the way throughout. the very beginning, we have a powerful contrast of Jesus and how the Pharisees responded to Jesus and how Judas responded to Jesus with envy and with greed. And then this woman who comes to anoint Jesus. The sacrificial love that she shows Jesus is incredible. Then a key portion of this passage invites us to consider the difference between Judas's betrayal of Jesus and Peter's betrayal of Jesus. Indeed, both of them denied Jesus and betrayed Jesus. And yet one betrays Jesus in such a way that leads to his destruction. He is the son of destruction. And another betrays Jesus, and he weeps bitterly for his betrayal. And he is forgiven by Jesus, and he is restored. Instead of being the son of destruction, he becomes the one to whom is the great apostle in Jerusalem, the apostle to the Jews. And he is the apostle on whom, with whom, through whom Jesus builds the church. Furthermore, there's contrast there even with Peter's denial with Jesus's affirmations of the truth. When Jesus is contested and he stands trial, Jesus affirms the truth, that he is the Messiah, and he affirms that they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. This is contrasted, of course, with Peter's denial 3 times and his cursing and not seeing them. Now, right in the center of this passage, I want to draw your attention to Jesus celebrating the Passover meal with his disciples. But he doesn't just celebrate the Passover meal, he transforms the meal to celebrate a new type of Passover. In effect, he says this bread and this cup once referred to the celebration of the people leaving Egypt, the exodus of the people in which they fled Egypt on a night in which God took the lamb's blood and he allowed that blood of the lamb to substitute for the blood of the firstborn. And then he led them out of Egypt and he led them up to Mount Sinai, and he instituted a covenant with God's people, and he instituted it through the blood of the covenant that was shed. Jesus now takes this bread and this cup and he says, this bread and cup no longer refer to the blood of the Passover, but they now refer to the blood of a new Passover and the institution of a new covenant. Indeed, Jesus was referring to the death that was imminent. It was according to the scriptures. It was such that the prophets and the writings would be fulfilled, as he emphasizes over and over in this passage. But something I want you to see beautiful that Matthew draws out specifically at the Lord's Supper is that the Lord's Supper not only refers to his death on the cross, but here in the Lord's Supper, Jesus refers and predicts his resurrection. He says he will drink of this cup anew together with his disciples in the kingdom. So he predicts his death and he predicts a resurrection back to life for himself and a participation of his disciples with him in the kingdom of God, and he will drink anew with them. And so when we celebrate the Lord's Supper together, we look back to the work of Christ on the cross, his substitutionary death. We celebrate being united to Christ in the present by faith, and we look forward to that time in which we will drink anew with the marriage supper of the Lamb. We will drink the cup with Jesus in the future when he returns in the kingdom of heaven. So I encourage you today to treasure Christ, to hold fast to him, and to read this passage of his love for us and the love of Jesus Christ, even while we might betray him, just like Peter. Jesus dies on the cross for sinners who repent and trust in him. And that is why we treasure him today. Love you guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow for Matthew 27 and Matthew 28. Grace and peace.